Hey guys, we're here today recording our Dragon-type Pokemon tier list. So if you guys enjoy this type of content, of course, leave a like below and subscribe for more content like this. I do want to quickly mention before we get into the tier list, one, this is ranking off of how I feel they are competitive in terms of just as a whole, so whether this is VGC, OU, etc., it's a whole general, is this a good Pokemon, is this a bad Pokemon? Two, this will include Pokemon from Legends Arceus, so if that is not for you, skip the video until you have currently played through Legends Arceus. This will include some Pokemon that are pretty big spoilers for late in the game, so that is why I'm mentioning this now. With that said though, let's start off with the tier list. So, as I said, this is generally off of how good a Pokemon is, so we could start off pretty easily by putting a Alolan Exeggutor in the D tier. It's a pretty terrible Pokemon no matter how you look at it. It's cool in Trick Room, to be fair. It has some okay use in lower tiers, but this is a Pokemon you're always going to as a thumbnail Pokemon, as I'd like to put it, because you're really only using it to try and draw other people's attention to your team, not because it's the best option. Dragonite, on the other hand, is a pretty obnoxious Pokemon. It's consistently a really good Pokemon, especially ever since Heavy Duty Boots have came out. However, in general, I think that Dragonite best functions as really Dragonite's Pokemon, and that's really how it's always been. In general, I would put Dragonite in the A tier. I think it's definitely become a really obnoxious Pokemon, and I would love to see what Game Freak does to make it stay in the spotlight. Mega Ampharos is up next, and while I don't think this is as bad as Exeggutor low in form, it's definitely not a great Pokemon. It has some cool uses on Trick Room. It's usually a niche Pokemon in like Nat tiers, though less so in Gen 8. But like you'll find some decent niche out of this. I think it's a C tier Electric and a C tier Dragon as well. Mold Breaker is pretty cool on it, and the typing is also really cool, but it definitely isn't the best Pokemon by any means. Next up, we have Kingdra, Rain Abuser for Dragon, and it's one of the best Rain Pokemon in general. The Dragon typing as well, and spec sets with Water plus Dragon is really hard for a team to switch in on, especially with moves like Hurricane as well to punish grasses. I think Kingdra's definitely at this point solidified itself as a B tier Dragon. Really, I think it might go up to A, depending on how the list scales, but to be fair, there are a lot of really good dragons, so I think just in comparison, Kingdra's gonna fall a bit lower on this list. If this was maybe water types, I think we could maybe see it in the A tier, but for now, I think I'm gonna put it in B tier. Mega Sceptile's up next. Similar to Mega Ampharos, is kind of a niche Pokemon, but it has some good usage. The speed is really cool, and this has some decent utility, depending on the metagame, just as a potential Lightning Rod abuser, and then just going for Draco Meteor and stuff like that. Well, Dragon Pulse, I should say, because it didn't get Draco. But I think, again, I'm going to put it in the C tier. It's pretty on par with Mega Ampharos, just for the complete opposite reasons. Mega Ampharos is more of a bulky pivot, and Mega Sceptile is more of the Glass Cannon sweeper cleaner Pokemon. Next up, we have Flygon. Now, Flygon, I think, is kind of abysmal, but to be fair, it's mostly because of Pokemon like Garchomp and Zygarde are classing it. I think I'm going to put this in the C tier. This is, again, a Pokemon that has some use, to be fair. It has some good defensive utility, and it's a good Scarfer, in my opinion, in lower tiers. But it's not really a Pokemon you're going to go to and be like, I want to use a Flygon, as just a general, like, OU Pokemon. This is a Pokemon you might, at best, use in certain Yu-Gi-Oh! Metagames, but more likely than not, it's like an RUNU Pokemon. Mega Altaria. Mega Altaria, I think, is B tier. Regular Altaria is a definitive D. However, regular Altaria is pretty dog shit. I shouldn't really need to go into that, in my opinion. If you've ever used Altaria, you would know it's pretty dog shit. Mega Altaria, on the other hand, though, has a Dragon Fairy typing, which is a pretty unique typing, and it's a really damn good one. I kind of wish that this had a little bit of a speed buff, or just a little bit better coverage, in my opinion, because I feel like that this Pokemon sadly does have a bit of 4 move slot syndrome at times, but its typing alone carries this enough into the B tier, in my opinion. It's a very hard Pokemon to really fill a role, like to replace its role, I should say, just because that typing alone is so obnoxious. And if they gave this to a Pokemon like maybe, I don't know, I'm trying to think, but maybe if they gave that typing to a Pokemon that's a little bit better than Altaria as a Mega, this would be an easy A, maybe even an S tier Pokemon. But it's just because they started off with Altaria that, to be fair, I mean, the jump shows this is a really bad D tier Pokemon, this is a really good B tier Pokemon. So I think just the jump between those two is really incredible, and it just goes to show how much better they made Altaria by making it a Dragon Fairy. Now, Mega Salamence. Mega Salamence is a definitive S tier, and I think I'm going to put Salamence in the A tier. Salamence has some pretty good usage as less of a Dragon Dance Pokemon, but more so as, well, between Dragon Dance, defensive, specs, etc., this has a lot of versatility, and Dragonite, while it's usually an attacker, it has some usage as a bulky Pokemon. I feel like Salamence is a bit more fluid just because of abilities like Intimidate, and also Moxie. They give it 2 polar ends, whereas Mence is always multi-scale. You're never really running Inner Focus at any time. So I feel like it at least keeps up with Dragonite, if nothing else, but for very different reasons. I think Mence is a bit worse of a Pokemon, but it has a bit more to offer, I feel like. Next up is Mega Latios. Mega Latios, I'm going to make an S+, actually, really above this. And this is not for Mega Latios, to be fair. But I'm going to move up Mega Garchomp. Yeah, okay, so add a row above. We'll add, there we go. We'll make this S+, and we'll put Megaments in there. That way, then, we can have a easier distinction between some of these Pokemon. I think Mega Latios definitely is an S Pokemon. It's not at Megaments territory, though, by any sense. Megaments is a really obnoxious sweeper, which I meant to get into that a little bit, but Megaments is such an obnoxious sweeper. It's really good in Ubers, especially because you can get an Intimidate off into the Mega Evolution, then go for Air Lace spam on whether a physical or special set. You're pretty set. Mega Latios, though, it's still a really good bulky Dragon Psychic. It sometimes does work in OU metagames. It's really performing, though, in draft specifically. Where draft metagames, this is a really obnoxious Pokemon with the 110 speed on top of its incredible bulk. Moves like Reflect type as well offer a lot of utility to this Pokemon. So I think stuff like that, especially with the new buffs with things like Orsier and Mystical Fire, they really help Mega Latios perform in a counter team setting. However, you're not really going to get that in the OU metagame to the same degree. It's definitely still better than stuff like Dragonite and Mets, though. Latios, though, I think definitely goes in the A tier. It's still a pretty good Pokemon, just less bulky than Mega Latios is. Its typing is still really cool. It can hold items, to be fair, over Latios, which is something. But again, it's just not at that same level of performance. Mega Latios, I'm going to put Mega Latios in the A, I'm going to put Mega Latios also in the S tier. And I'm going to put regular Latios in the A tier. I might need to make a tier between, because truthfully, these could both probably go in some sort of between tier for currently, but it'll depend on how the list scales. Regardless, though, Latios has a nice edge of holding items similar to Latios. It's just a bit more offensive. In fact, actually, I'm going to really quickly make one more tier. I'm going to make an F tier below. Then I'm going to start scaling stuff down. Because I've realized that we really do, with 59 different Pokemon, we really do need to scale stuff a little bit differently. So bear with me as I really quickly rescale stuff. We're going to put Dragonite and Salamence in here, as well as Latios. We'll keep, actually, I think this will pretty much do it, to be honest. Yeah, this is pretty good. So we've now rescaled the tier list to accommodate for that extra tier at the bottom. And I think this will probably be a perfect set of tiers, in my opinion. But I think realistically, Latios is definitely an edge above stuff like Latios, Salamence, Dragonite. It's always a top tier cleaner, and it's always a really good Choice Scarf user. It's really hard to find a metagame where where Latios is not going to be performing, in my opinion, especially with new coverage it got. So yeah, easy Pokemon. Now we do need to make one more tier. Actually, I forgot about this. This is specifically the tier for Mega Ray and for Eternatus. This is called the Ban. This is gonna literally be called Ban Please. And this is gonna be. I'm gonna drag them in here now, because these are clearly like uncontested. No dragon is going to be touching either of these. Nothing comes close to either of these, and I'll go over them really quickly as to why. Eternatus Emax has 1180 BST. That speaks for itself. Mega Ray is a Mega that can hold items, and it has 780 BST. It's literally, besides Eternatus, the highest BST in the entire game. Really obnoxious speed at 115, with both offense having 180. Its ability weakens all of its flying type weaknesses by one set of weakness. It's like Ice is now only 2 times, Rock is a neutral hit, stuff like that. Both are really obnoxious. They're easy ban contenders. None of them should be really allowable, in my opinion. Anyway, on to Rayquaza. Rayquaza, though, is an S+. This is a really, really strong Dragon Dance Pokemon. It's a really good banded user as well, and a pretty cool Scarfer at times. Realistically, Ray just has the benefit of holding items, and honestly, I put it in a pretty similar camp with Megaments, whereas Megaments is a bit item locked, and at the same time, though, it has that less fluidity because of that. Whereas Ray gets stuff like Band, Specs, Life Orb, Scarf, etc. But at the same time, though, Ray is a bit slower, and because of the fact that Ray needs Dragon Ascent, it's lowering its speed and defenses to use that move. Well, its defenses to use Dragon Ascent, and then its speed as well as defenses to use V-Create. So a lot of its stronger moves is going to be weakening itself and forcing itself to switch out. Whereas Ments can just spam Dragon Dance, Roost, Sub, Body Slam, and honestly get around a lot of teams. So I think that they both have very different roles, but they're both very top-tier Dragons in my opinion. Next up, Mega Garchomp. I'm going to put Mega Garchomp in the B tier, though I will say, actually, I'm going to put Mega Garchomp in A. I was going to try and put these in a different tier, but truthfully, I think with Scale Shot, Mega Garchomp actually has a lot of uses, a really strong breaker, and just a really good smash Pokemon because of that. One of the best wall breakers currently, in my opinion, at least for the allowable Pokemon, I should say. It's so amazing with Scale Shot. And especially like a draft setting, this mon is absolutely kicking ass. Garchomp has a bit more of a natural speed advantage, but it hits a lot less off rip. So I think they both have a give and take sort of feel in my opinion. If this is before Scale Shot, I think Mega Garchomp would have been a B tier Pokemon and Garchomp would have been A. However, because of Scale Shot, I think they both are in a pretty equal camp right now in my opinion. Next up on the tier list, we have Dialga and Palkia. These are both easily S. I'm going to put these actually both in S tier. I will say we have forms later on that are going to be in S tier for these two Pokemon, so I'll actually cover that really quickly as to why. Actually, specifically Palkia's. I'm going to put Palkia's in S+. I'm going to put Dialga's in the S tier. Now, Dialga's alternate form, I think both are pretty on par, just for very different reasons. Dialga regular has the ability to run like leftovers, life orb, etc. Whereas Dialga's alternate form has a bit more speed F, so that could, especially if you're not running the items because you're running the origin item, because I believe we're going to have to run Advent Orb to do that, but I'm not 100% sure. Still unconfirmed because we have yet to get a home transfer for this Pokemon, obviously. But assuming that is the case, because it would be pretty linear with Giratina, I feel like this Pokemon will probably end up just being a really good Pokemon, like a really obnoxious Pokemon, but it's not going to be broken. Palkia's origin, on the other hand, is based 20 extra speed off of Palkia with 20 less of attack. So as bulky as Palkia is, still able to check the weather legends being Kyogre and Groudon as well as Palkia can, but it has extra speed to do so. And at 120 speed, if you throw that on webs, this is going to be an absolutely obnoxious Pokemon in the tier. Especially when Lustrous Orb should still, assuming it functions the same as Giratina's item does, give the transformation while giving a boost to both its stabs. So that's an easy S+ for me. Palkia and Dialga are still really good Pokemon. I think Dialga is pretty on par with its alternate form, but Palkia I think is now a step below. Really, its only use would be a Scarfer or a Specs Pokemon, just to get the bit of extra edge damage-wise or speed-wise. However, Palkia's origin form just has a mix of both, and it's really terrifying in my opinion. So yeah. Next up, we have Giratina's origin form. This and regular Giratina are both S tier. They both serve different purposes. I think Giratina's origin form is probably one of the weakest S tiers we're going to get, in my opinion. But Giratina regular, at the very least, if nothing else, is going to be a really good wall. It's a bit less offensive, which Giratina's origin form does have that advantage of, as well as the ground immunity. So there are certain team archetypes that might benefit from Giratina origin, maybe teams that are really ground weak. In DPP metagame and BDSP metagame, this origin form has actually been the better option at most times. But typically you'll find that regular Giratina is the better option. It really just depends on the meta, in my opinion. So yeah, they're both kind of but they're both S nonetheless. Arceus Dragon is an easy S+. Definitely, it's just like Palkia having the 120 speed, but it also is 120 in every other stat. Foregoing an item slot, sure, but it's boosting stab and getting judgment at 120 with a dragon type option there. Has good recovery, has stuff like hazards, good utility, really amazing coverage, really good calm mind Pokemon in my opinion. Arceus Dragon isn't exactly the best Sword Stance Pokemon, however, though. It really doesn't get that great physical options for Dragon, at least in comparison to Special, but I guess you could still run it. Regardless, though, Arceus is just a really fluid Pokemon. This is a pretty easy S+ in my opinion. Next up on the tier list, we have Charizard X. Charizard X is an easy A+, and an easy A tier Pokemon for me. Similar to Garchomp and Mega Garchomp, is a really good Dragon Dancer as well as a really good Breaker. In my opinion, it's kind of a good hodgepodge between the both, because while regular Garchomp has a bit more speed and ground typing is a bit better offensively, it's able to wall break a bit better than regular Garchomp can, and while it gives a bit of the wall breaking that Mega Garchomp can, at the same time though it has base 100 speed, which is a much easier tier to really abuse in my opinion. So it's literally just a hodgepodge of Garchomp and Mega Garchomp in my eyes. Next up though, we have Haxorus. Haxorus is definitely a B tier Pokemon. 97 speed is really cool, and it has some phenomenal offense. This definitely ever since getting First Impression as well, so really good uses of Bandit or Life Orb Pokemon, just going 3 or 4 attacks, and just coming in, clicking First Impression, and then going for a sweep. So I think that Haxorus definitely has some good use there. Has some cool abilities, like for example, Mold Breaker is really amazing, but ultimately I think it's just definitely shies out of the A tier in my opinion. Next up, we have Dredagon. Dredagon's definitely like a C tier dragon. Rough Skin is really cool for the lead sets, but this is literally like the antithesis to dragon types. Most dragons are pretty offensive, whereas this really functions more as a support piece, which is fine. It does a good job at it, in my opinion. But with stuff like Glare and Stealthrox is literally the only reason it's staying at a D tier, or even potentially F tier, in my opinion. But probably more so D without those items. Next up is Hydreigon. Hydreigon's definitely an A tier dragon. With options like Nasty Plot now, this actually is a really phenomenal special Dragon Breaker. Able to boost quicker than stuff like the Lottie Twins can, and while it foregoes a bit of speed to do so, that Dragon and Dark typing with Levitate is really amazing in my opinion, giving itself 2 immunities as well, and it has stuff like Flash Cannon to get around fairies, which is really useful for it. So I think that Hydra is definitely a really solid Pokemon. It's also a phenomenal Scarfer, and it's a really cool Stall Breaker with options like Taunt Roost. So I think this is definitely an A tier Pokemon. Reshiram is definitely an S tier Pokemon. However, I gotta give Zekrom S+ at this point. Reshiram definitely lost out a bit because of the fact that Fire is a bit lackluster as a type for dragons. While it still definitely proves useful for killing steals, in terms of the Uber's metagame, this really isn't going to give much, barring the fact that it's neutral to Fairy. Zekrom, while is weak to the Fairy typing still, and also has an Electric typing, which means it's susceptible to ground type hits, Dragon Dance really benefits this Pokemon a lot, in my opinion. Whether it's a National Dex Pokemon where you're running Z-Move on it, whether it's a Sword and Shield metagame Pokemon where you're just running Dragon Hit support, and you're setting up on a lot of different common Pokemon, barring Groudon and Zygarde, you're able to really make this Pokemon work well, in my opinion, and it's a really scary Dragon Dance Pokemon, with Terravolt especially helping getting around, well, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Terravolt. Point is this Pokemon is just really obnoxious. I'm pretty sure the ability as Dragon is Terravolt, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it is Terravolt. So that's a Mold Breaker ability right there. So this gets around any sort of Pokemon like Unaware Clef, for example, that might Rampage the tier. And I use Rampage very loosely because I still think Clef is a shit fairy. But regardless, though, well, shit fairy and Ubers, I should say. But regardless, though, I think Zekrom has a really good use as a Dragon Dance Pokemon, in my opinion. And its typing is so incredible for it. Literally, only like grasses and grounds really affect this. Next up is Kyurem White. Kyurem White is definitely an S tier. Kyurem Black is definitely an S tier. And Kyurem is definitely an A tier. Kyurem White and Black, I don't think they're the best Pokemon in Ubers, in my opinion. Kyurem White is definitely better, but I don't think either really get out of that S+ tier in my eyes. They're both kind of weak to rocks. They're both really forced into... Well, Kyurem White's really forced into Scarf rolls. Kyurem Black is really forced into Dragon Hits rolls. Neither really do that good in the tier, in my opinion, though Kyurem White is definitely the better one. Actually, I'll put Kyurem White in S+ just to reflect that. To be fair, Kyurem White over other dragons, if nothing else, has a really good type. No, never mind. This is still kind of shit in VGC, and I wanted to combine all metas, not just singles. So yeah, definitely both S tier Pokemon. Kyurem, on the other hand, gets the A tier, mostly just because of its singles usage. This Pokemon actually got banned in Sword and Shield recently because of how terrifying it was to switch in on. With just options like Freeze Dry and Earth Power, this is an absolute menace, in my opinion, for non-Ubers tiers, I should say. But you're never really using this thing on any sort of restricted VGC meta or any sort of Ubers meta, so it definitely resides in the A tier, in my opinion. Dragalge is definitely going to get a C tier. It's a dragon that can kill fairies, so that's really useful, in my opinion. Just taking care of one of the biggest weaknesses for dragons. Sadly, though, it is neutral, so in the poison end's losing out on a bit of points, but in the dragon end, it's gaining some. Against Toxic Spikes, Flip Turn from Momentum, its adaptability as well for boosting its stabs. This is a really good C tier Pokemon, probably one of the best in my opinion. Tyrantrum is going to get a D tier. While it's a really good Pokemon, I feel like Tyrantrum just... Actually, no, never mind. It is definitely at least better than Flygon. So I'm actually going to put this in the C tier, and I'm drop Flygon to D. I feel like Flygon just kind of is so lackluster among these, now that we're seeing the C tier flesh out. And Tyrantrum, at the very least, is a really good Band-Aid Pokemon, really cool Dragon Dance option, with things like Rock Head and Head Smash really making use of its abilities. Next up, we have Goodra. Goodra is definitely a C tier dragon. Actually, Goodra's definitely a B tier dragon. No, C. Definitely a C tier dragon. The Assault Vest set is really good on this Pokemon. It's a really cool Bandit option, unironically, because of Sap Sipper, even though its special attack is slightly higher and the coverage is better. This has some cool options. It's okay with Gooey in VGC as speed control, but it's not really a Pokemon you're ever going to see just, like, stand out, in my opinion. It's always just going to exist. I will go into Hisuian Goodra, on the other hand, though. I think Hisuian Goodra is definitely going to be a B tier dragon. The biggest reason being that Dragon Steel typing is going to be immensely powerful, as I mentioned with Dialga. I will say, though, in comparison to the other A-tier dragons we have right now, though, it's definitely going to fall below those. It could definitely still be like an OU tier, like a lot of those dragons are, but to be fair, Dragonite sometimes is OU, Ment sometimes, very rarely is OU. So it's probably going to be more so like that middle, like UU, OU range. It'll be cool in VGC, though, especially if it keeps Gooey. The coverage is amazing on this Pokemon. I just don't think it's comparable to stuff like Lottie, Garchomp, etc. Next up, we have Noivern. Noivern's definitely a C tier. Really cool speed, and Infiltrator is really nice in this Pokemon. It's a really good utility, but again, similar to Druddigon, dragons mostly aren't utility Pokemon. To be fair, it's a bit less passive, and it's a bit more of a glass cannon than Druddigon is, but they're still not really meant to be utility, so I definitely gotta knock some points for that. Zydog, I'm definitely gonna give C. Arrows is the only reason it's not an F tier Pokemon, well, a D tier Pokemon. Zygarde Complete is an easy S tier, obnoxious HP stat, and this is one of those few dragons that can really shine as a support Pokemon, and just a really good wall. The 216 HP plus the immense 121 Phys Def really helps this Pokemon just wall any sort of physical attacker in the tier for Ubers, and it can even take hits from special attackers to a certain extent, because you can mostly throw the investment in Spidef. Really obnoxious Pokemon. It's probably one of, if not the best Pokemon in S+, in my opinion. I would say the only competition it really gets in that regard would probably be from either Mega Ments or Palkia Origin, but yeah, it's definitely up there. Zygarde, on the other hand, I gotta give A tier. I think the draft and counter team formats as well as VGC really weigh this Pokemon down specifically. This is just off of singles, this would be an S tier. Like, specifically for like Smogon singles, it would be an S tier. But it definitely loses out on a bit compared to Garchomp in draft metas because Garchomp has rocks, slightly faster, etc. Zygarde still does have a nice spot though because of stuff like Glare, Arrows being pretty much unswitchable besides grass types. So it definitely has some usage there, but ultimately it's definitely not an S tier Pokemon in my opinion. Especially when you compare the S tiers to Zygarde, I think they're all obnoxiously better. Next up we have Silvally Dragon. Silvally Dragon is definitely a D tier dragon. Silvally as a whole would be a C tier because it has other types, but Silvally as an individual type is never above a D tier in my opinion, besides maybe Steel. But even still, I definitely think that Dragon itself is one of the weaker Silvally types. It has some cool use like resisting all the starter types, but it's really lackluster in my opinion, and I'd rather use Flygon any day over this, maybe even low an Executor depending on the team. Turtonator is definitely a D tier dragon. We're getting into a lot of those shittier dragons now. Turtonator definitely has a bit of really bad speed holding it back for Shell Smash variants. To put it in perspective, at +2 with Timid, it can't even out. It's either just under or just over Ground. I forget what the calc is, but it is like right around Grand tier, which is insane for a +2 Timid Max Speed Pokemon. Definitely don't think it's that good. The typing is just so much. It's not great when you're comparing it to stuff like Zardex and Reshiram for that same typing. Definitely a D tier. Drampa is also a D tier, albeit it's definitely better than Turtonator, but normal Dragon, it has the benefit of getting a lot of coverage, but at the same time though, defensively speaking, it's not really that great. It loses to stuff like Ice types, Fighting types, etc. Fairy, you name it, it's just a bit too slow. Really cool in VGC as like a Trick Room Pokemon, but even still, it's really niche at best. Next up, we have Como. Now, Como, I think, is definitely an A tier Pokemon, mostly because of stuff like Natdex and Draft. Draft specifically, this is a really good Pokemon with stuff like Dragon Dance and Clangor's Soul. You're able to really prep physical and special sets really respectably, as well as stuff like Iron Defense, Body Press, which gives this Pokemon a whole new usage entirely defensively speaking. In terms of OU, especially in the Natdex metagame, you get the Z moves, so that helps a lot with the Z moves for both Clanging Scales as well as Clangor's Soul. The stacking for that is honestly really insane. So this Pokemon is honestly insanely obnoxious just because of that. Easy A tier in my opinion. We have Ultra Necrozma up next. I'm gonna put this in the S+ tier. Now, I know a lot of people think this Pokemon is really terrifying, and I mostly think that's a combination of Duskmane plus Ultra Necrozma. Ultra Necrozma as a whole, though, as an individual Pokemon, is not in that same camp, in my opinion. So I definitely think that this is probably the best Pokemon we currently have up here in the S+ tier, but it's not in the same camp as Mega Ray or Adonatus, because I feel like there's at least options to Revenge Kill this, in my opinion. Next up, we have Naganadel. Naganadel is definitely an S tier Pokemon. Really cool spiker, in my opinion, taking on the role of Gren as a suicide lead, as well as just being a really good nasty plot Pokemon. It's a good Scarf or Specs user, you name it. It's just really versatile now with Spikes. It's no longer just offensive glass cannon that doesn't really hold up in Ubers. It has actual use, in my opinion, especially in the Sword and Shield metagame. It's a nice dragon that can kill fairies really fast. We have Appleton G-Max. I'm going to put Appleton G-Max in the D tier. It's a really shitty Pokemon, even as far as G-Maxes go. Literally the only thing that keeps that, actually I'm gonna put it in C. Only thing that keeps out of D tier is the fact that it is a G-Max. Appleton gets, Flapple gets F. D for Appleton. This is both, to be honest. I didn't want to add in both. They're literally the same Pokemon, in my opinion. Neither's really that good. They're so similar, and it's the same sprite. It would be hard to tell, and it would look like I'm just putting both there. So that, consider the G-Max for both. They're both C tier. Appleton itself is a D tier. It's a cool defensive dragon. Ripen is honestly really cool for just berries. Thick Fat is okay on it, but it's still taking a lot from ice attacks. Flapple is just really shit. It's way too slow with base 70 with Hustle. If it was faster, like base 100, Hustle would be pretty cool on it. But base 70 with Hustle, this mod is really just unusable in my opinion. Dracozolt gets a B tier. Dracovish gets an A tier. I don't think Dracovish is that good in draft. It's an okay Pokemon. If this was just off of OU and Smogon and all that, this would be an S tier just because Fish's Rend is really hard to switch on for a lot of like common meta Pokemon. But when you know it's coming, you can usually prep a Scarfer specifically for this. And Dracozolt is similar, but it's just worse than Dracovish because there's a lot more immunities to electric being a whole type, whereas Dracovish only really has water absorb. Duraludon gets a B tier for G-Max and a B tier for regular. I personally don't think that G-Max Duraludon is that good, whether it's VGC or otherwise. Duraludon, I think, is actually the better option personally because the max steel move isn't really that great. For G-Max at least, whereas with regular Max Duraludon, you can boost defense. However, it is still a G-Max Pokemon. I have to respect it. It is both are B tier in my opinion. Next up, we have Dragapult. Dragapult, I'm actually going to put in the S tier. Now, I feel like this might be a bit of a hot take, but I think personally Dragapult is a really ban-worthy Pokemon in draft for like standard draft leagues. And it's a really top tier Pokemon in OU. I'm pretty sure it got banned in that dex. If not, it's hovering the line in my opinion. But it is up there, I know for a fact. I just haven't played Nadex in a bit for OU, and I can't remember if Pult is OU or Ubers. Point is, though, it doesn't really matter. Z-moves, if this is allowable in OU, make it really broken. If it's not allowable, it's still really fast in Ubers, able to revenge off a lot of Ubers because the typing alone is so good against a majority of dragons and psychic types in that tier. So I think it is an S tier Pokemon, actually, and you can comment down below if you disagree. But the final Pokemon we have, well, we have two Pokemon. Next is Regidrago. This is C tier. If it wasn't for the fact that it has Dragon Energy, which is basically Dragon Eruption, this would be an easy D tier. But Dragon's Mob plus Dragon Energy makes it a really cool Trick Room Dragon, in my opinion. Finally, though, Eternatus, easy S tier. S plus tier, I should say. Really, it's up there with the last three in that tier. The last three are honestly the best dragons in this tier, in my opinion. Which is kind of funny about the back end, but that's just game freak power creeping there. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this tier list, though. If you did, leave a like below and subscribe for more content like this. Let me know what tier list you guys want to see next in the comments. I want to try and hit all the types, and I'm going to try to do one type a week. So I'll go with whatever type you guys comment down below. With that said, I will see you guys in the next one. Until then, peace out, guys.